The methodology of mysticism or yogic way of looking at things is to turn inward and look at what we are made of. This is coming from the fundamental, in science you would say an assumption. In my experience, I say from the fundamental knowing, the way I am made is not different from the way the universe is made. I am just a tiny bit, but still, you can sit here with these little eyes, you can look up and look at a galaxy. This is because this is made the same way and we are able to reflect that. There are some studies, people say that they have looked at the vision and mindscapes of some insects or something, some experiments have been made where they're saying their vision and their thing doesn't go beyond their survival requirements. So this capability we have because we are able to reflect the entire universe within us, if we wish. In fact, everything that we are seeing is only a reflection. Right now, these people seem to be here, but we are only seeing them the way they are reflecting in the firmament of our minds. There is simply no other way to see it. So having said that, the fundamental instruments of perception is just this. How we keep it. Different people can see different things based on how sharp they keep themselves. When I say see, I'm not only talking about visual apparatus, we see through the five senses and more. So, in this context, the way we see this is because your cosmology, inevitably the other day, the boss didn't allow you to speak about time because he said, no, it's time. But you had spoken about space, which I see personally as a consequence of time. Well, let me just articulate in simple words what is the way we see the universe and see how many overlaps are there. And if there are things that don't overlap, we can examine why they don't overlap. It's like this. In the yogic principle, the universe was like this. This is usually represented as an arborist, a snake, a cobra running into each other, mouth and tail included, and a hood rising here. So, this is not the European arborist, I know, they make it a circle, but this is how it was. So we call this anant, that means it's infinite.
It's…
Infinite.
Infinite, yeah.
Infinite, I'm sorry. We're Indian, you know.
You invented the concept.
No, I want to tell you it's not a concept. This infinite or infinity was like this. The nature of infinity, I don't have to tell you, but for everyone. If you make infinity plus 10, it's still infinity. Infinity minus million, still infinity. So, your mathematics don't work. You do plus, minus, multiply, divide, nothing. So, it was like this. You could do nothing with it. Then it unfolded and became like this. Then we call this shunya.
Oh.
Shunya means emptiness. It became empty. What was infinite became empty. This is very important to understand this. What was that which is infinite? Was it not empty? We could not even call it empty or full at that time because it's infinite. There's no plus minus to it, no multiplication and division to it. So it was this way, it uncoiled itself to become nothing. Nothing means we must put a hyphen between no and thing. It is a no thing, but it has a presence now. This presence, I'm assuming, maybe this presence is what the modern scientists are calling as dark energy or dark force or whatever. But it's very appropriate because we call this shunya or kala. The word kala means empty, the word kala means darkness, the word kala means time, the word kala means space. All these four things became somewhat manifest because it became a kala. So this is here as emptiness, but we call this infinite space. Must mark my words, it's infinite space, not time, because there is no distinction. It is time which is unfolding to become space. So once it became kala like this, you can see it as emptiness, you can see it as time, you can see it as space, you can see it as the first manifestation of that which doesn't have a form. Anything that doesn't have a form is also called kala. So, what was infinite space became zero, now plus one is plus one, minus one is minus one. Suddenly, there is no physicality yet, but there is a mathematical foundation for its physicality. Now, once it became empty like this, the word shunya is, in terms of written word, for the first time it's seen about 400 BCE. There are documents where clearly the word shunya and the mark of a zero is there. It traveled to Arabia in early, the next part of how we count time today. Because those divisions are not there in our minds, because we have to communicate with the English-speaking world, we have also come that the cut-off date is somewhere 2000 years ago. Otherwise, we don't have those cut-offs in our minds. So I'm just saying, what are you calling it now? AD? It's not AD anymore, what are they calling it? CE, it's called CE now, Common Era or something.
Ah, CE, yes.
Yeah. So, in the Common Era, in the first, second century, or maybe by third, fourth century, it traveled to Arabia because Indian traders were maintaining trade routes from India, right from the bottom of India, that is southernmost parts of India, right up to Damascus, Jerusalem, Aleppo. Even today, Aleppo city is supposed to be 8,500 years old, and that city was built by taxing the Indian traders. So, the live transaction was a daily business, people were traveling quite a lot. So, it traveled to Arabia where they called it cipher. The word cipher again meant empty. This cipher came to Europe, in Latin they called it Zephyrium. That went to Venice, where it was the hub of many things happening in Europe, and there they called it zero, and the English called it cipher. These days nobody's using that word cipher. When we were growing up, it was common to use the word cipher in English language, but I don't know in…
As a code, as a secret code.
Oh, is it?
Well, the word cipher is to do, in English, is connected with coding, but this is a different context.
Yeah. We used to use the word cipher as a zero. When say, it was used in a derogatory way, oh, he's a cipher, he's nothing kind of thing. So, this aspect, once it became nothingness, but it was a firmament of tremendous existence, but without physical form. Then we go into a more, a dialectical way of expressing this, where we say, we're calling this kala as a being, a large, formless, not large, infinite, formless being. Infinite cannot have a form, of course, so it's a being. And he breathes. He was inhaling is a long process, maybe running into millions or billions of years, there are calculations for that, I'm not the mathematician for that. And when he exhaled, it's not that he has nostrils, he exhales from everywhere. If we did not have actually even our skin is it's not only perspiring, it's also respiring. So we are breathing through our every pore in the skin. Like that, when he breathed, that created a certain amount of energy. That we call as Shakti. Shakti came out of him. When energy came out of him, then this firmament of nothingness, which is a powerful force, it started reverberating initially, then caused ripples. Those ripples led to cyclical movements. So with these cyclical movements, the first physical forms came out and it all over burst forth. As these cycles became more and more complicated, from whatever we call as electrons, protons, atoms, planetary systems, universes, all these evolved because of the cyclical movements. Fundamentally, we see physicality as a consequence of cyclical movement. Our very birth is because of the cyclical movements in our mother's bodies, otherwise we wouldn't be born. There is a yogic doomsday you would like to know, sir? So studying these cycles, feeling these cycles in our own bodies and studying these cycles, things were figured out because we were more interested in how to transform life here and how to make a human being go beyond these cycles. As I said earlier, the cycles of time are such, they can crush you. Why in their childhood they were like this and now they become like this, a lot of people. Time has crushed them. People think it's their experiences of life, this and that. No, that is only an excuse, it's actually time which has crushed them. Or the same time could trap people. They're okay, but they're bored and they don't know what to do with themselves.
Do you mean crush them in the sense that they die?
That will anyway happen, but when they're alive, they feel crushed by time. The cycles of time just crushes them day in and day out. Yeah. Many people wish the sun doesn't come up tomorrow morning, but it comes up and they have to go to work. It crushes them. In United States they have, thank God it's Friday.
Yes, yes.
It means they don't have to wake up tomorrow morning.
Yes, yes. TGIF we used
to…
Yeah. At Caltech we used to have the TGIF celebration every Friday.
So, we want to break these cycles. So, any cycle naturally has a centripetal force and a centrifugal force. If you get caught up in the centripetal, you get crushed. If you ride the centrifugal, then you're released, a tangent is formed. So, to attain to this tangent is the goal of life in the East. We call this mukti, nirvana, moksha, whatever. Essentially, we want to ride the physical cycles in such a way we are liberated from the physical cycles. How did people see these things? How did people come up with these things? This is always a question. Well, how did the modern scientists see something? Today everybody is talking about Hubble and whatever the other one, John Space?
James Webb Telescope.
James Webb Space, whatever. What are these instruments? These instruments are just extensions of our own senses, only because we have eyes. Only because we have eyes, the telescope means something. Otherwise, what is a telescope for a man who has no eyes? Simply nothing, all right? It's just a pipe. With a few mirrors and maybe lenses or whatever it is, it's just a pipe. It's a metal pipe, we can use it for something, but you can't use it because inside they've blocked it with so many things.
Quite expensive.
Expensive pipe. I agree with that. So I'm saying only because we have eyes, we are making instruments which will extend our eyes.
Indeed.
So, this extension was done in so many different ways. One of the things that we did was that we created energetic forms which would make us look very, very far. Today, unfortunately, it is all being misunderstood and misrepresented, but there were instruments with which we could look very far, we could open windows into the cosmos. These we called as our deities. These are not gods, there is no concept of God in the East.
Are you talking about modern telescopes or ancient
Both.
metaphor.
There were no ancient telescopes.
I meant metaphorical.
Yes, they saw things by creating energetic forms. You have definitely heard of, because he was in your neighborhood, Ramanujam.
Yes, of course, yeah.
So when people asked him, some 3,900 mathematical formulations he came out with, which is still being debated and discussed, and people are trying to understand what he wrote. When people asked him, he was dying of tuberculosis. He sat on his deathbed and simply poured out mathematics. When people asked him, how does this come? He said, my Devi, which means my goddess, bleeds mathematics.
Ramanujan was at my college, Trinity.
Yes.
But before my time, so I never met him. And to me, that is a fascinating example of how one can get information about the universe, not just through the intellect, but through inspiration. As you say, he thought he had his information.
If I should correct that, sir, I'm sorry I'm intervening like this. You never get information through your intellect. You get information through your senses, and there in the intellect you mess it up.
Well,
I mean to say you match it with the old information and try to make sense out of it.
I wouldn't like to admit that we always mess it up, but I think
No, I'm saying we're trying to make sense out of it. But normally what we think is sensible right now is actually blocking us, because what we think is smart, we can't leave. What we think is stupid, we can leave easily.
So you've made so many interesting points, Sadhguru, that well, I'm not sure I can remember them all, but can I react to some of them?
I will remind you.
First of all, I'm glad you mentioned Ramanujan and mathematics, because one of the fascinating things about physics is that ultimately the language of physics is mathematics. You can see a few equations behind. And that is showing that our understanding, because mathematics is a creation of the mind. And there's a curious circularity, because mathematics underlies physics, physics underlies our understanding of the universe produces life and brains, and then the brains produce the minds which produce the mathematics. So you've got this curious cycle, the fact that the universe is comprehensible. I mean, you were sort of decrying, in a certain sense, intellect, but intellect is part of the process involved in mathematics, an incomplete process, but it's because it's just the left-hand side of the brain trying to sort of understand things. And to me, that's always fascinating, why mathematics is actually able to describe the universe. It's a miracle. We talked about miracles quite a lot, but it seems such a miracle that human beings, with their limited brains, are able to understand so much of the universe. I mean, we've only been around, well, 10,000 years or whatever it is, and yet we already claim we can almost understand the universe. Physicists claim they can almost understand the universe completely. Now, I suspect that claim will turn out to be wrong, but at least it is a miracle that we can understand so much. So that's why I sort of reacted to the argument that intellect messes things up. I agree it's often wrong, and in fact I suspect most things turn out to be wrong in the end in physics, but one shouldn't worry too much about what's right and wrong. I think what's interesting is the path. I think most theories of physics end up being wrong, but that doesn't mean it isn't useful, because it's the path which is important rather than the final paradigm, which is always going to change. But I remember there's a statement that mathematics is the language of God. I don't know if this is a statement in the Indian philosophy, but mathematics is the language of God, it is sometimes said. On the other hand, I know that Rumi said that the language of God is silence, and that maybe is more consistent with what you're saying. But so that's the first point I wanted to make, the importance of mathematics, although ultimately it can't it can't reveal everything. I still think it's important, and that's why I loved your reference to Ramanujan, who was a spokesman for mathematics, which came, I think, from his Davis, from his angels, rather than just through his intellect. Now, I love the moment when you took your infinity and it turned into zero. Because, as people will know, I spoke about the cosmic Ouroboros in my talk on Thursday. And I love the cosmic Ouroboros because it encapsulates all the triumph of physics in coming to understand the physical universe. But of course, the most interesting aspect of the Ouroboros is where the head meets the tail. And I said, well, the head corresponds to the universe, and we know how big the universe is, 10 to the 27 centimeters, and the tail corresponds to the Planck scale, 10 to the minus 33 centimeters. Well, those are only the biggest and smallest scales as we understand it. Really, what those scales represent, it's infinity and zero. Okay, the larger scale is infinity and the smaller scale is zero, and of course we reduce them to finite amounts so we can understand them. But to me, the really interesting point about the Ouroboros, the top of the Ouroboros, is that is where infinity meets zero. Now, the symbol of the Ouroboros is like a zero, you remember. But the symbol which Sadguru used is, of course, the symbol of infinity. And I came across your representation of that on the website somewhere. It's a beautiful image. In fact, I think I even showed it briefly at the beginning of my talk. But I'm not sure if it was intended, but to me, that was a fascinating thought, because it shows that, in some sense, infinity is zero. And that's how the universe began, because from a physicist's point of view, the universe began in a vacuum. We don't know exactly what happened at the beginning of the universe, but in some sense, there was just pure energy. There was no matter, no form, no structure. So it just started out of a vacuum. And the vacuum, I suppose, corresponds to zero. But it also corresponds to infinity. Because from my perspective, at least, at the top of the Ouroboros, that may be the end of physics as we understand it. But actually, from my perspective, that is where mind and spirit come in. And so that from my perspective, if we want to have an extension of physics, it's there at the top of the Ouroboros that we're going to somehow find mind and spirit. And maybe from a cosmological perspective, that is where the universe has come from. Because if you believe that mind in some sense was prior to matter, you must find it there at the top of the Ouroboros, precisely where your zero and your infinity meet. Now, and then you refer to all the different cycles of time. The other thing about the Ouroboros is that there are all those different levels of structure. You remember I talked about them. There's biological time with human beings, there's planetary time, there's stellar time, galactic time. So the physical world is full of all these cycles. And so when the material world was created in the Big Bang, it led through a process of evolution to all these different levels of structure, which had all the different cycles, all the different time scales, which of course range over a huge range. I mean, that cosmic Ouroboros was expressed in terms of space, in terms of time, spaces, the scales of things. It could equally well have been expressed in terms of the time scales of things, because every length scale goes with the time scale. You mentioned space and time are intimately connected. And so you could also put time scales around that diagram. Every level of structure has a time scale associated with it. And so that is a manifestation of the physical world, that there are all these cycles. And we as human beings, of course, we experience a limited range of these cycles. And I was impressed almost depressed when you said how it's the cycles which can overwhelm us. The experience of these cycles can be almost depressing because you feel that it's just in everyday life constantly. I hate shopping, and I find having to go shopping every day, especially when my wife is away, and having to every day shop and then cook every day and then wash every day, it's a bit overwhelming. So I think I understood what you meant by that. And but that's part of it. It is part of cycles. And I was, but all I want to, one thing
I must tell you, in yoga, these cycles are referred to as samsara.
Yes, yeah.
But in common society, in the language, the word samsara means family.
Oh, right. Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh, right. Well, I can… Actually, I don't have any children, but I can imagine that's… I can imagine that's samsara, yeah.
Suppose you went to your lab and you found a new universe. It doesn't matter, you still have to come home.
Yes, yeah. And yet, of course from Buddhism, I understand the concept of samsara and the constant cycle of birth and rebirth and how one needs to escape from that. And so my understanding is that although there are all these cycles in the physical world, that there is an escape from all those cycles, which I understand, although don't experience, is in some sense the aim of, I suppose, of the mystical path, to escape from the cycle. I have to say personally, I've never had I'm not a very spiritually evolved person, and I know I'm not going to become enlightened in this life.
Why do you say that?
Well, because I meet more spiritually evolved people.
You're trying to destroy my work.
No.
Because my work is to make sure that everybody, it doesn't matter who you are, what you are, the possibility is always there. Will you invest in the possibility or not? That's left to individuals. But if you say it's not possible, then you're trying to destroy my work. Don't do that.
Well, if by becoming enlightened I can justify your work, I will strive to become enlightened. Yeah. Yeah. But all I mean is that I don't personally feel I've been very successful. I mean, I meditate and things like that, but and I know, but I have many spiritual friends, many, and I like to think that their spirituality rubs off on me somehow.
No, sir. This is a wrong sense of the term spirituality spreading around in the world.
Okay.
To be spiritual, you need not be going to a temple, church or mosque. You need not be praying, you need not be meditating, nothing. It is just that if you're sincere enough, I'm using the word sincere because if you're sincere enough, you know you don't know a damn thing. That means your intelligence is always seeking. If you keep yourself that way, you're spiritual.
Okay.
So I've not given up on you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I feel I will be more spiritual after this conversation. Yeah.
I've always struggled in terms of my main focus in life on a spiritual, traditional healing viewpoint and the hard science. And I think we really see this convergence now between the cutting edge of many areas of science with the spiritual tradition and this thousands of years of experience. I asked you before, where did it come from? So what did this, how did people in India 3,000 years ago come up with concepts that today, after millions of dollars of investment in research, and we're still not quite there, we're still struggling. How did sages in India come up with that, or scientists?
One important thing is we did not differentiate between sages and scientists. Our scientists were sages, our sages were scientists. Because we don't have a religious tradition, we only have spiritual cultures. And spiritual culture does not mean that it is one kind of behavior or one kind of scripture or one kind of moral code or something like this. Each person can develop their own spiritual culture if they want. It is out of this that millions of pathways opened up. Essentially, a spiritual culture means a certain way of exploration, a certain way of seeking. Every human being can seek in their own way. If they don't know, they can seek guidance in a particular way. We're not against both. Both are fine. If you don't know, you use the GPS. If you know the way home, drive by yourself. Some people get lost in America going home, you know. Yesterday we were following the GPS and it made us turn into the one-way street, everybody honking. We're going the wrong way, but the GPS is telling us, go, go. So, one who's not figured out their own way will stick to some established pathway. Others can figure out. So, the most important thing is, which I feel the scientists and the educated class and the universities should create is, in the Indian culture or this culture that we call as the Hindustan or Bharat, there is no such thing as a heretic. That is, if there is an established way in one place, if somebody is doing something different, everybody is excited about it. Nobody is thinking how to have him crucified or burnt or something like this, because the basic ethos in the culture is everyone must seek. So out of this, even when so-called divine entities appeared, when we say divine entities, over a period of time, people get haloed, all right. But when they were there, they lived life, they bore children, they fought wars, they did everything, they were normal people, but they rose above everybody else out of their competence, out of their vision, out of their insights. They rose above everybody. But looking at how they rose beyond the times in which they lived, after a long time we all say, this is a divine entity. So we must understand because in English language these are the words, so I'm using those words. When we say a divine entity, we are not saying he came down from somewhere. See, for example, in recent times, probably you know nothing about cricket, you're from California, though both starts with C. In India, C means cricket, okay? It's a game. So, in recent times, there has been a particular player who rose beyond anything that anybody would have thought is possible. He broke all records that were there for over 100 years. So in India, we said he's a cricketing god. It's very appropriate to our culture. If somebody excels beyond a certain limit that we think is human limit, then we say he's divine, he's exalted. Essentially, the Indian word, probably a more appropriate word is an exalted being. He's risen above normal strata of those times. So in this sense, even when those people came, nobody could give us a commandment, because Indians are questioning people, endless questions they have, and endless opinions they have. If there are 5 Indians, there'll be 10 opinions. They will sit and argue with each other, against each other and against themselves. Because this is a culture which has encouraged questioning, never encouraged obedience. But at the same time, very respectful. Just because I don't agree with you, I never think that, something must be done to you. Because I think always it has been inculcated, there are a million ways to look at the same thing. This is why every creature is respected, because, it's not scientific parlance. I'm saying my grandmother would say, if a little grasshopper is hopping, children want to smash it or do something. So, no, you don't know where he's going, what he's doing. You don't do that, you don't like him, leave him outside. You don't crush him, all right? You just leave him because you don't know who he is. Maybe he's a sage, maybe he's a seer, maybe it's God hopping around. You don't touch him, all right? So this sense of acceptance to everything, we don't know. What the grasshopper knows, you don't know. In many ways, he knows a lot about life than most human beings know. He knows his life perfectly well. It's only human beings who don't know what to eat, how to shit, nothing they know. All other creatures have figured out these things very well. So, this kind of openness allowed this. So we never separated our sages and scientists. Scientists and sages, sages and mathematicians, sages and musicians, sages and astronomers, all same people. Because there were no telescopes, there were no microscopes, there were no other outside instrument. The only instrument is this one. Evolving this to a place where this can see everything that it can see. It'll be probably in this kind of a university, you should know, but unfortunately you do not know. Over 3600 years ago, in a document called Surya Siddhanta, which now is becoming popular because of English translations and stuff, they have calculated the speed of light just almost to a microsecond of what the modern calculations are. I'm saying nearly there are drawings which are probably paintings on the walls, which must be over at least 1000 BC, where clearly the earth is going around the sun on the back of a turtle. There's a turtle walking, on top of it is a round globe. I don't think rest of the world even imagined the planet is round at that time. A round earth on the top of a turtle's back and going around the sun. Why a turtle is, it's the most appropriate animal to carry the earth because a turtle cannot accelerate suddenly, it goes at the same speed. So they're depicting the movement of the earth like the walk of a turtle, it's just going around and around the sun. This is over 1000 BCE. So, about the biome, in the Jain texts, which are right now identified as about 6th century BCE, they're talking about something called as a niguda. They're saying niguda means essentially almost non-existent beings. They're saying tiny lives are all over us, inside us, outside us, everywhere. Tiny lives are all over. So the biggest presence on the planet is these tiny lives. I thought they're talking about your science, so…
Yeah, no, this is fascinating. I mean, it's still, even though you explain it, I mean, there's some sort of an insight that is beyond what we practice in the West in terms of…
One way to understand… I'm sorry, sir, I'm intervening. One way to understand this is, whatever instruments we have created, right now a microphone, only because we can speak, this microphone is meaningful. Yes? If we had no speech, what do we do wearing these microphones? Only because we can see a microscope or a telescope is meaningful. So all the machines and instruments that we have created on this planet are only extensions of our already existing faculties. We've not done anything new absolutely. Everything is just an extension. Where we can see till there, that's not good enough for us, we must want to see beyond, so we came up with a telescope. We see this, but we are not able to see many things which exist here, so we need a microscope. So it's only enhancement of our existing faculties. So there is another way, when we don't have these instruments, there is another way to enhance your faculties, that's where the sages come in.
Yeah, you mentioned the microbes, and this is one of the topics of our conversation here. This new microbiome science is relatively new, 15 years that people have reported about potential influences of microbes or their chemicals that they produce with the brain. Within a relatively short time, this has kind of made a paradigm change in our understanding of many brain disorders. For example, multi-center consortium focused on Alzheimer's disease, and the progress that's being made amongst these 35 universities is really mind-boggling. That we don't have all the answers. Every time we try to look, it's opening up a new universe and a new vast space that we don't. But one thing is becoming clear.
Not having all the answers is a very important thing, sir. Then we will touch it tenderly. If we think we know everything about this rose, we'll rip it apart. We don't know a lot of it, we will little…
No, that's a good one. But I think today people are really talking about, particularly in the lay press, they pick up some of the science that's going on in Alzheimer's or in Parkinson's, and immediately it's, okay, the consequence of that research is this new medication, or now we have a way, which was still far away from it, because we don't understand the complexity. The lay public does not grasp the complexity because it's presented by the lay media in such a simplistic way that there's one microbe, one chemical that is responsible for, Parkinson's disease. But the reality is, there is a lot of evidence accumulating that Parkinson's starts in the gut, and that the microbes have a big role in first interacting with the enteric nervous system, the little brain we have in the gut, and then that these changes are transported through the vagus nerve up into the brain. But that it takes about 14 years before, after the microbes did this initial damage in the gut brain, that the neurological manifestations are coming about. And I think it's still the beginning, and in Alzheimer's disease it's equally complex. But there's now pretty strong evidence that these interactions between our gut and the microbes that live in it, and then you can extend this further, and the kind of food we eat and the environment where we grow this food in, that there is this connection to some of the most serious diseases that we're going to be facing in the next 50 years, because people are getting older and the prevalence rate for these chronic neurodegenerative diseases is increasing. So I think this is an example where, on the one side, a great sense of optimism, but on the other hand, the simplistic way that in our Western understanding people try to interpret the scientific findings that are at the very beginning is sort of falling back into the old paradigm. There's a very simplistic causal relationship between one agent and another, agent that responds to it. So how would you see this in your framework of, so we talked a lot about the brain yesterday. So it's not just the brain in isolation. The brain does not explain everything, for sure. If we link it to this other very complex system, what we call the gut connectome, all the immune cells and neurons and hormonal cells in the gut, it's becoming more appropriate, but it's probably even bigger than that. So what's your view on this? So what I said about Alzheimer's disease or Parkinson's, that we now know in the last 10 years really, it starts in the gut and it slowly affects the brain, but it's not only a brain disease, it's a disease of the whole system.
Unfortunately, this is happening, that what happened a minute ago, people cannot remember. And we are beginning to assume it's normal. This is not good. This is not normal, because everything in this body is designed to last a lifetime. Sometimes due to injury or infection or something else, an external aggression of some kind may destroy something. But we're destroying something from internally. That is the dumbest way to do things. But we are doing that large scale. If we want to really fix it for the entire population, if you don't overhaul the food industry, the pharmaceutical industry, and the water systems, those who supply water to you, I'm thinking, what kind of genius would add poison to water and drink it? Every city dweller is doing this. If you don't understand what I'm saying, put 10% chlorine in your drinking water, 1 cup of water, and drink it and see what happens to you. Only thing is, you think by taking it in mild doses, you will die slowly. Of course you will. In my understanding, sir, if I'm wrong, please tell me. How I see and how I know life is, the tiniest organism that's here, whatever you want to call it, I don't go about christening them with different names. These foundational life which is there, whether it's in a plant, animal, human beings, this life in its fundamental design and structure is not different from ourselves. We are different only in complexity and sophistication, but fundamental design of life on this planet is essentially same. Plant, animal, worm, insect, human being, everybody has the same fundamental design. Just complexities and sophistication of things as they go on is different, of course. So what kills a minute bacteria also will kill me if I take the same thing in a higher dose. Am I okay, sir?
Absolutely.
Am I sounding scientific to you?
Absolutely.
So, we coming to this conclusion, if we mildly poison ourselves, we will be okay. Where does this come from? So, there are many families whose children, both in India and also some in New York City, coming to me and saying, Sadhguru, our children are sick, their physical constitution is so weak, they're becoming asthmatic and they're struggling daily. At least, 3 to 4 weeks in a year, they are in hospital. I say, you made enough money. You may not be a billionaire, it doesn't matter. You have enough money to buy 10 acres of land somewhere in Iowa, if you want to, or Tennessee or somewhere. If you really love your children, just move there. Homeschool them, ask them to work on the land half the day, you will see they will grow up as robust youth. After that, let them do whatever they want. So, this whole urban dwelling, where people… no wonder all of you are always experimenting on rats. We've all moved in like a pack of rats into one place, piled up into tall buildings. Now, infections are a serious thing. At that level of proximity, all kinds of things will transmit. See, if the same pandemic, the coronavirus, had happened here, let's say 2 centuries ago, somewhere in one part of the world, a few people would have died. Today from Wuhan, it seems they were telling me, I don't know what these numbers are, they say in those 2 months, some 2,700 flights took off from Wuhan to the rest of the world. Oh, this is transporting a disease, all right. If there was no air traffic, they would have spread among themselves, maybe people would have been resilient enough to handle it, it would have been over. Probably 1,000 times these events have happened without any impact on human life. Now, because of the proximity of human beings, anything that comes goes like that. So can we all spread out, move away from the cities and live in farms? That's not a reality. Not everybody can do it, the nature of our professions, work, various things won't allow that, lifestyles, all this. But if you find you are too susceptible to live in large groups of people, you must do that, that's one thing. About the food that you eat, one most important thing, I don't know how it is seen by the biome science people. In yoga, any food that we cook, if it is more than 1.5 hours after it came off the stove, we won't eat it. I don't have to know the timing when it was cooked, if it appears in front of me, if I just look at it or place my hands on it, I know whether to eat it or not eat it, because body is sensitive to these things. This is the most sophisticated mechanism on the planet, that's what I think. So what do you think, sir?
No, I agree.
This is the supercomputer, this is a supercomputer, this is the motherboard for all the supercomputers, isn't it?
It is.
So, such an sensitive instrument you have, but you can't feel anything. This is because we don't know how to manage our cerebral activity, it's going crazy. Because we are talking about gut, we can use this word, this is a mental diarrhea which is going on. When there is diarrhea, you can't enjoy food. Similarly, when there is mental diarrhea, your abilities of the mind will come down significantly. Will it happen in terms of loss of memory? Will it happen in terms of loss of other faculties? Will it happen in terms of loss of discrimination? This is happening to people and people think it's normal. Let me tell you my life's example. My great-grandmother lived to be 113, 113 years of age. She is married to a very rich, wealthy man. And those days in India, these are called landlords, they have large amount of land and they're into a very large business activity and all this. After her husband died when she's 68 years of age, she moved out of the house and built a small temple for herself, not for a god, for herself. You must understand, these are Indian women. This is an Indian woman, she builds a temple for herself. No other deity, she goes and sits there. Built with her own hand a small little temple. And people gather to meet her because people think she has solutions, and she had. So I'm just a little boy at that time and we all go to our native place during the summer vacations only. 35 to 40 days is what I get to spend in that town, otherwise we are all living in cities. So when I go there, and we are about 36 of us children, between the age groups of 3 to 20, all cousins, cousin brothers and sisters, a whole bunch living in various parts of the country, all coming down for the summer. So at that time, because children are there, she would come. By then, she was 100 plus. Like this ramrod straight, she is. And from the farm, from her temple, she walks home, which is about 2.5 kilometer walk. And she walks, spends the day with us and everything. And she lives a certain life. There is another dimension to her life, let's not go there. In terms of food, I'm saying. If you give her breakfast, first thing is, she will take it and feed the ants, she'll feed the squirrels, she'll feed the sparrows. More than half will be gone to this. And some days she will eat the remaining. Some days she simply sits there watching them eating and tears will be… she'll have tears flowing out of her eyes. So some self-appointed advisors are always there, even I have them around me. They go and say, "Hey, you old woman, you will die like this without eating." She will just laugh and sit there. All these advisors died. She went on living. And when she was 14 years of age, she got married. In India, the culture is such, an unmarried woman cannot smoke. Once she gets married, it's her choice. If she wants to smoke, she can smoke. So she exercises choice on day one. So, I've seen her smoking the bidis, it's pure tobacco leaf, just like that, nothing else, just the leaf itself, the outer thing itself is tobacco leaf. She will smoke it with inside, the fire inside, like that, not outside. Every day she smoked and every day she chewed tobacco. At the age of 111, she got throat cancer. She simply sat. She made her own liquid, till the last day she was cooking for herself. With her own hands, she makes a little bit of liquid diet and slowly sips it in and simply sits there. No hospital, no painkiller, no doctor, simply sat there. About maybe 15 to 18 months, something like that, she suffered enormous pain, but she didn't say a word. And she died at 113. I'm saying, till the last day, she's as sharp as anybody, okay? This is very much possible for every human being, it's just how you keep yourself. Now we are thinking, if you're 50, blood pressure is normal, if you're 60, loss of memory is normal, what is this? This is not the way human body is made. This is made in such a way, as long as you live, all these things can work. No spectacles, she would read.
Yeah.
At what… when I have seen her at 105, 106, At that age, she sits and reads without spectacles.
No, I mean, there's very good evidence for what you said, scientific evidence that, I mean, the brain does not naturally age. I mean, there's some functions that slow down, but these concepts that high blood pressure and high lipids and brain degeneration are all normal phenomena that come with, at age 60 or 70, and that we have to expect this avalanche of people with Alzheimer's disease just because we're aging. So this is the logic right now.
In my understanding, only motor skills can come down with age. That is understandable. It's not necessary for anything else to come down. Your physical agility may not be the same, that's okay.
Yeah, so this is concept about the health span, that really this should really be the goal, to reestablish the normal health span of individuals, not the longevity, but longevity in a healthy state. But that's not what our economic model is based on. The pharmaceutical industry obviously loves these diseases that kick in at age 60 or 50 and then go on to the rest of their life. One thing I'm always fascinated by, whenever I'm a visiting professor, I compare the size of the medical center that I've been invited to over several years or decades, and they're all growing. They keep growing. So you would think that's not a necessary. That's really not. What's the reason for that? It's because we don't deal with the root cause of the problem.
Yes. See, the thing is, we start commercial activity initially to serve humanity. But slowly, this economic engine has become so large that human beings are the fuel. We have to burn ourselves to somehow keep the economic engine going. This is a complex thing, this is not just any one aspect of this overall approach. We have forgotten that commercial activity is for human well-being. Having said that, let's not simply waste time and talking about things that we can't change. Where can we change? I feel if we can, if it is possible somehow, which we are attempting through these conferences and various things, if we can bring the attention of qualified medical professionals. There are many systems of medicine in the world, but in today's world, because of their inability to organize themselves, they are all just fringe. If all the alternate systems of medicine are put together, I don't know if it is even accounts to 2%, I don't know the stat, I'm just guessing. It may be 2% or less. So essentially, it is the allopathic system of medicine. One important aspect which I feel small shifts are happening, but not enough to make a difference for the common people. One simple thing is, allopathic system is right now symptomatic in its treatment. You have a temperature, we know how to cool you down. You have pain, we know how to take away the pain. We don't have the thing of looking where is the source for this. This is costing a certain amount of illness. One important thing is, somebody that you don't like is driving in front of you and they put on their indicator, they're turning right. You take out… I'm from Tennessee. So you take out your revolver and shoot the indicator out. And now I think he's going straight. No, he's turning right. His indicator is out, so now I think he's going straight, but he's turning right, so there's going to be some issue. So this is the approach, we are treating the symptoms. I think from symptomatic treatment to a more cause-oriented treatment if we can shift, which may be difficult because medical industry and pharmaceutical industry have… you can't separate them. Because when you say medicine, it means that, all right? We are not saying health. We are not saying health, only these days people are trying to say healthcare because that is all the stuff that comes with it. But this is essentially medicine. This form or this way of looking at health systems in the world happened Because when this system started evolving, the biggest threat was infectious ailments, diseases. There was plague, there was malaria, there was smallpox and this and that. So mainly allopathic system came up to combat them because they would wipe out the whole populations at one time. So in that context, they did the right thing. Even today, whatever people may say, I will 100% vouch, if you have anything infectious, you just treat yourself with modern medicine because that's a chemical warfare, not all good for you, but if you want to be well tomorrow, that's a way to deal with it. But seeking health through medicine is a very… not a go for me, not a go for anybody actually, because you will pay a price for that. Because all chemicals are trying to remove something. But there is no chemical, if I have pain here, there is no painkiller will go just here, it'll go on to kill everything. Pain is a very important part of our survival process. Most people don't have enough sense in the world that if they didn't have pain, they would cut themselves into pieces. Hello? Have you not seen all the new fashions, have you? They're piercing themselves here, there, everything, there's so much pain. If there was no pain, they would have pulled out their intestines and walked on the street using the stomach bag as a handbag. It's the pain which is limiting the fashion. And it is pain, if a bicycle comes, people step back, not out of humility. The consequence of pain. If the consequence of pain is removed, even if a truck comes, people will go like this. So they wouldn't even survive. So pain is a good thing. So don't kill the pain. What is the source of the pain? Must be seen. Why the indicator of pain is coming up, this must be looked at. Like this, I'm not trying to, like simplify the whole medical system, which is a complex process. So where one thing ends, it's not this versus that. Where one thing ends and the other thing begins. Our health should begin at home, our food, how we breathe, how we sit, how we stand. When something goes wrong, a doctor should come. You must not have a doctor attending you right from your childhood to your grave. This is not the way it is. You don't need that.
But it is the way that we…
It is the way it is, because once you create an industry, you need clients.
Questioner: Namaskaram Sadguru, I have a question about grace. To me, it seems to be accidental, coming and going for no apparent reason. In the ashram, I find it easy to access or to feel it, but once I go outside, it is quite difficult to be connected to that energy or grace. Could you please explain how grace works? Sadhguru says, this is like asking me to talk about the fragrance of this flower. How to do that? Only if you have a sensitive nose will you get its fantastic smell. If you have a stuffy nose, you will get nothing. In the same way, grace means nothing to many people. It is not a matter of thinking or talking about it. It is simply that only when you are too full of yourself can you be unconscious of grace. It is like this. As a human being, you do not have to go to school to know about the planets, the solar system or galaxies. If you simply look up, you will realize that you do not know where it begins and where it ends. In the middle of nowhere, you are sitting on a planet that is spinning, and it is definitely not your doing. One way to describe whatever is holding all this up is grace. Here it is not a question of whether you are available to it or not. If you are walking down a street that reeks of something rotten, you automatically want to block your nose. Rotten things do not have an objectively bad smell. They actually smell so good, so many other creatures, that they are immediately drawn to them. We simply label as bad what is unpleasant to us. The point is not whether a smell is a good or bad, but different things have different impact on the solar system. There is no question about that. Every reverberation, smell, sound, light, everything, every form is a certain kind of reverberation. You yourself are a reverberation. So you cannot help but to influence by all these reverberation. When you say grace, we are not looking at a certain kind. We are looking at that which is the basis of everything. You do not know how the solar system is held in place, how the whole universe is held in place, or even how you really happen. You do not know. So many cells stay together, or how to make your life happen. You have explanation, but you do not know. If you know exactly how, you could create a life right now. When there is so much that you do not know, but everything is still happening wonderfully, that is clearly not by accident. So whatever is making all this happen, that energy, that force, we call it grace. The question then becomes how you make yourself available to it. If you have a stuffy nose, the fragrance of the flower means nothing to you. If you are blind, light means nothing to you. If you are insensitive, nothing means anything to you. It is question of becoming sensitive. Most people are ego sensitive, not life sensitive. You have to be cautious about what to say to many people because they are horribly ego sensitive. For everything, they will crash within themselves. First you create the illusion of ego, then you create another illusion of falling and rising. It is very bad game. You must have disillusion soon. If you are absolutely disillusioned, you will always be available to the grace. If you have no illusion of your own, you will wonder about everything. How can you not wonder about everything, including your very existence? If you have no conclusion in your mind about anything, if you are simply here, you will be soaked in grace. Even now you are, but you cannot enjoy it unless you are conscious. Grace is always working, but you cannot benefit from it when you are not conscious. It is medically established fact that if two people eat the exact same food, both will not get the same level of nourishment because it depends on your ability to draw sustenance from it. All of us are in grace, but you have to develop the capability to draw sustenance from it, so this life becomes expression of this grace. You might have smelled some of these phenomenally fragrant flowers that are typical to southern India. Do you think the garden department is pouring fragrance at the root? No, they are putting filth as manure. But how fantastic these flowers become because it is their nature. We are planting the tree, nurturing it, taking care of it, and everyone is concerned about its growth because it produces these fragrant flowers. Suppose the flower gave out an unpleasant smell of filth, we would have removed it. Grace brings many benefits. Once you are exuding grace, everyone wants to nurture it. Everyone wants to promote it. Everyone wants to be part of it. The question is not at all whether you are in grace or not. You are in grace. Otherwise, you cannot exist. The question is only whether you exude grace or transform it into something nasty and release that into others. Whether you eat food, breathe, or drink water, it is all grace. Otherwise, how could it be? 2 parts of hydrogen and 1 part of oxygen becomes life-making material. You can offer explanation, but you do not know why this happens. All that happens is grace. When you take in grace in the form of water, food, or air, will you conceive and exude grace? Unfortunately, people take fantastic things into themselves, turn them into nasty nonsense and release that instead. But look at the flowering tree. You give it filth, it gives out fragrance. If you learn the way of the tree, if you learn the way of the rock, you will exude grace. The question is not whether you are in grace or not. Definitely every creature is in grace, capable of exuding the grace that you consume. That is the question.